Guys, good morning. Daryl here in Connecticut. It's 4:10 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. I want to talk about two things yesterday that I came across. I heard two different conversations. I was involved in one and another conversation about the Super Bowl. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I saw the replays the next day. I heard one conversation in my local supermarket, the IGA, the between a man about my age or a little younger, a working guy, and an older woman behind him. The other conversation I heard three, and then I heard another conversation in the library, and then I was involved in another conversation with my family uh, about the halftime show. Um, The first guy I heard in the IGA, I heard people like shaking their head and clucking their tongues. The people behind me about, did you see the halftime show? And they didn't use the word appalling. Uh, and I heard something about J Lo, and the guys must have loved that. And I was like, I didn't know if there was another wardrobe malfunction or what. So as I go to the library, I hear another conversation. Finally, I had a conversation with people around me, my family, and I didn't hear the words Puerto Rican or Spanish or anything like that, but I got the general feeling that the people around me were saying that it was a little sexy, it was a little racy, that they were shaking the music and they were shaking their parts and everything. Granted, these are people my age or a little older. Uh, I got a definite feeling that it was racist. The people around me were like, "Did you see the halftime show?" And I was like, "No, what?" And they wouldn't come out and say it because they know what I'm about. They know I'm liberal, and I just don't buy that crap. Puerto Rican people are part of the United States. When I was younger, my hair was a lot darker. In the summer, I get very, very dark, and people often, I've been mistaken for Spanish or Puerto Rican or Cuban many times when I was younger. There's been, when I was a kid dating in high school, when I met two different mothers of two different girls I was dating, and one came right out and asked me, "Are you Puerto Rican?" Uh, I've been mistaken for Puerto Rican before. I know right now I don't look it, but when I was younger, I was mistaken for Puerto Rican quite a bit. I'm pretty much half Native American, a Micmac, Native American, Algonquin, um, from this area, and Canadian French, and I have a little bit of a German in me too. But anyway, yeah, so I've been mistaken for Puerto Rican before, and I've never. I've seen girls in high school. I remember seeing girls swoon over, or in college, seeing girls swoon over a lot of Spanish men. So I always thought it was a compliment. I never had. I always thought it was. I had no problem with it. Like I told you guys before, I learned, my family spoke Canadian French before they spoke English in the house. So I learned French at an early age. And then I took Canadian French and Parisian French are completely different languages for those of you who don't know. Uh, so I spoke French. Um, and I picked up Spanish through my years. I don't want to say through my 20s and 30s. I had a lot of Spanish friends, and I picked up a lot of Spanish. I was in a lot of Spanish households in my 20s and 30s, and I've told this to my family too. I didn't know if my family was going to be upset by this or not. I've told my mom that I saw so many similar when I was in these Spanish households, these Puerto Rican households, and they're cooking. It's around supper time, and the smells and everything reminded me so much of my French Canadian upbringing. From the crucifix on the wall, because both are Catholic. to just the language, hearing the grandmother and the families talk, it reminds me. The language is different, but it just reminded me the food, the smells were different, but yet so similar. And just the sense of family and the Catholicism and just the whole aura reminded me so much. I never understood. I was like, why would I possibly be racist against these people? And when you get down to it too, my background, French Canadian and Native American, is from the top of the country in Canada, whereas Spanish people, Mexican, Puerto Rican, are from the bottom, are native and from the bottom of the country, and they're both native people from this area. There's Native Americans from the south of the country and Native Americans from the north of the country, and there's a lot of similarities. And then on top of that, the French and the Spanish have a lot of similarities too. So I noticed I've never had a problem. I've always enjoyed the Spanish culture. I just saw a lot of similarities between it and mine. I was surprised. My family wasn't insulted at all, because they are Trump supporters, and they can come across as prejudiced. So anyway, yeah, I got the general feeling that these Super Bowl, the older people that watch the Super Bowl, what I realized they were saying was these Spanish girls shaking their goodies. That's what it was. And it wasn't just about girls shaking their butts and their boobs. It was Spanish girls, but specifically Puerto Rican girls. And there was an underlying prejudice to it. Even if I didn't specifically hear the words, I could tell, like in the supermarket, these people knew the other people, the checkout person, they knew I was listening. They didn't say the word Puerto Rican, but I knew there was something they weren't saying. And the same thing in the library. And as I had the conversation with my family later, I realized what it was. It was a racist view. I don't know. Like when Madonna did the halftime show, I think if I remember correctly, or Janet Jackson in the wardrobe malfunction. There was a hubbub about that, but I noticed an underlying tone of racism when they were talking about the halftime show yesterday. Because I know too that they had the American flag, and then she whipped out the Puerto Rican flag. I forgot that was part of the conversation too. And they had I could tell these people around me didn't come out and say it, but they had an issue with this. These people still refuse to admit that Puerto Rico is part of America, part of the United States. Even the people around here, they seem to look at Puerto Ricans as illegal immigrants, and they are not. Okay, one other thing I noticed yesterday, and this was troubling, man. I took a bike ride. It was warm here yesterday. I was out on my mountain bike, and I saw a woman out for a walk. I've seen her out before. She's healthy. She's younger than me. She's probably in her 30s, maybe even late 20s. And she was wearing a mask, one of those blue surgical masks. I didn't stop and ask, but I'm going to have to guess that it was the coronavirus. So I saw my first mask yesterday. I've never seen her wearing a mask before. I've seen her walking out here for years. I have to assume, and just the look in her. Sometimes I like I said, from the years of dealing with drugs and then recovery, I've learned I could read people fairly well. And as I went by her, I saw the look. She was looking at me, and I was looking at her, and I could see she was looking at me to see if I noticed the mask and what if I was going to say anything, or I could tell it was like an experiment with her being out with this mask and how she would be responded to. I got that feeling in her eyes when I looked at her. Anyway, so I don't know if this is going to become a thing. To be honest with you guys, okay, I'm not a medical professional. I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but I think this is getting way overblown. And I usually defend the media But on this, man, yesterday, it was ridiculous. I think it was ABC talking about there's been hundreds of deaths. And instead of saying 246 deaths, the reporter goes, hundreds of deaths. Now, he knows there was 246 deaths, but no, instead he uses the words hundreds of deaths. Why? To instill fear. The media has not been cool with this at all. To me, they're creating a panic on this. I really feel that. I think it's going to get a lot worse over the coming weeks. I'd be willing to bet. You guys leave comments if you start seeing people wearing masks. Maybe you already have. First of all, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's only 8 confirmed cases in the United States. There's one case in New York, I think, and maybe one case up in Boston on the East Coast here. That's it. So for this woman to be walking around with a mask by herself in a town of 7,000 people in the early morning, little ridiculous. But so yeah, let me know what you guys think on this. I don't want to say it's not a big deal. You know, any virus that's spreading around the world is a big deal, but I do believe the media is creating what could be a serious panic. Just the choice, that reporter on ABC yesterday, his choice of words. He could have just, I'm sure he's a smart guy. I'm sure he could have just said 247 deaths, but no, he chose the words hundreds of deaths. Makes a big difference, man. And I got to think it's purposeful when he did that. And it wasn't just that. It was his whole segment was just fear inspiring. They need to stop that. It's too late. They're going to ride this. And then from what I've seen, the mortality rate is mainly older, considerably older senior citizens with health problems, mainly. Like I said, I'm not a health professional, but it's not something I'm very concerned about. Maybe I should be. I don't know. Anyway, that's my daily opinions for today. You guys have a great Tuesday.